In England and Wales, it's an offence to encourage or assist a suicide, but currently Lord Charles Faulkner QC is tabling an assisted dying bill in the House of Lords that seeks to legalise the choice of assisted dying for terminally ill adults with less than 6 months to live. Joining me for a brief debate on the extremely complicated topic of assisted dying is Heather Pratten, official patron of Dignity in Dying, who is obviously in support of the law change, and Mik Scarlet, a broadcaster and journalist who thinks it should remain just as it is. Welcome to both of you.
Hello.
So we are talking a big week. Not only do we have the bill, but also we have the Nicklinson case as well. Why now, do you think?
Well, I think the bill coming has obviously generated a lot of interest, media interest, and perhaps the two have been, I don't know whether Jane Nicholson chose this time because there was all the publicity around it, or whether it was just coincidence. But it has given a lot to think about.
And Mik, there's research been undertaken by Benenden Health showing that 77% of people in the UK actually would assist in a death of a loved one. For some people, that's quite a surprising figure.
Yeah, I mean, what really shocked me was actually that another fact that they found was that a third of people surveyed said that if someone was severely disabled in a way that affected their lifestyle, that they too should be able to take advantage of assisted dying. And I think that's where I start to get really worried, because who says what is affecting a lifestyle? When I became a wheelchair user, I lost the ability to walk, to dance, to have children, or even to maintain an erection. And trust me, as a 15-year-old, that really did feel like it was impacting my lifestyle. So I considered suicide, and luckily I didn't take that route. But if that had been available to me, perhaps I would have done, and then I wouldn't have had all the fun that I've had since.
But obviously for some people, they do go down that road. Heather, tell us about your story and the effect it's had on your life since.
Well, my son had a degenerative disease, so he would have deteriorated every year. He'd gone halfway through the disease, which takes 15 to 20 years to kill you. He could have lived another 8 years with Huntington's disease, but it was always his choice that he was never going to go through the final years. He'd seen his father and he'd seen his aunt with the disease, and he always said that it was not for him, that he would live his life to the full, and when the time came, he would choose to die. When we started to talk about it, he tried to starve himself to death. I'd had him taken into hospital and he was furious. And then he said he'd been to the train station twice, but could only think of the train driver. And when his friends obtained some heroin for him, I just knew that that was the best way for him to go. He didn't want to be alone, and he knew I wouldn't leave him. So in a way, I didn't really have a choice. But I was with him in that, because it was the best way for him to go.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any problems with it. I've never regretted it, and I've always had support from everybody, my friends, family, girls I was at school with. I've never had any negative comments, and no, apart from the fact when I was on trial for on bail for murder, and then I went to the Old Bailey. Once that was over, we just got on with our lives.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. So afterwards, in terms of the eyes of the law, how were you treated?
The police were very kind to me, very sympathetic. I felt the judge took the time to listen to all the background. Everyone was just sympathetic and kind to me, and made it a lot easier.
Mik, essentially you're not against Heather, and no one could judge Heather in Heather's situation.
I think that's the thing, is a lot of, I have had quite a lot of negative reaction to my standpoint, and I think the thing is, or sitting point, and I think the thing is I'm not against the whole concept. What I am against is the lack of discussion and the lack of factual information about this. We talk about assisted dying, assisted suicide, mercy killing, you know, and we have terms like quality of life, but we have no distinction and no detail about that. And I think that if we try to go down a road at the moment that we're going down without intelligent discussion, then bad law could be made. And I am really worried that many of the cases that we're talking about, you know, Jane Nicholson and Paul Lamb, those cases are not about someone who is dying. We're talking about someone who is not living to their fullest. And that's my fear, because what we should be doing is fighting to make sure they can have the life that they want. Not that, oh, it's impossible, we should just help them die. So I don't think that it's impossible for anyone to really be able to enjoy their life. It's just we've got to help them with all of our might to make sure they can.
So how do we move forward in that sense then? How do we make that happen?
Well, I think that we need to be campaigning far more for an open and inclusive society. I think, you know, from the moment that I leave the house, even while I'm in my house, life is difficult. Wherever I go, I can't use public transport as easily as everybody else. I can't gain access to buildings as easily as everybody else. And I'm a pretty roughy-tufty guy in my wheelchair. So anyone with an impairment that really imposes on their lives, they should be able to make sure they can do everything that they want to do. They should have all the aids and adaptations that they need so that they can operate computers and watch telly. You know, I've got friends who have broken their neck who drive. They drive by using a suck-blow system on a car, and they, you know, nothing. I've got a friend who drives standing up because he cannot sit down. These are the things that should be given to everybody, and I think that that's the way to move forward. And then once all of these people have been given the opportunity to seize life and see how wonderful it is, then alongside that we can have that discussion about what to do at the end of our lives to make sure that we don't suffer. But the idea of lumping in someone who is in great deal of pain because they are dying and someone who is in a static disabled condition really frightens me. If for no other reason selfishly than I'm one of those people that is in a static disabled condition with chronic pain. So I worry what it says about me to the rest of society, and so then how the rest of society may view me if this law does go ahead.
And how about you, Heather? For someone who's lived it, what changes do you want to be seen?
I would like to see Lord Falconer's bill go through purely for people who only have 6 months or thereabouts to live, who are mentally competent to make the choice, and who go through all the safeguards for it. It's much better to have an inquest before they die than after they die. I don't think the public are in favour at the moment of an overall blanket right to die. It's very difficult, that. I do have sympathy with these people. I do understand where they're coming from, but I don't think the public would stand for that, really, to give, yes, it's okay for doctors to do this willy-nilly.
We are going to have to leave it there. My thanks to Heather Pratten and Mik Scarlet for joining us. If you want to find out more, go to benenden.co.uk/media-centre. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.